The Chicago Bears are about to make some big moves this offseason, and I'm talking the kind of moves that can completely flip this roster overnight. Because right now, the Bears don't just need upgrades, they need financial breathing room. And that means one thing: cuts are coming. Quick one: if you love Bears content, smash like, share this with a fellow fan, and subscribe so you never miss what's next. Now let's get straight into it. The Bears are sitting on roughly $3.5 million in cap space, and that number is honestly brutal. That's not even enough to comfortably get through the draft, and it definitely doesn't give you the freedom to reshape a roster the way this new regime wants to. We've already heard both Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles basically warning us that big decisions are coming with this roster. That doesn't just mean cutting guys, it could mean trading guys, trading for guys, restructuring deals, all of it. But today, we're locked in on one specific thing: the cut candidates. We're going to break down 5 players the Bears could realistically move on from, plus a couple of long-shot options that technically exist on paper, but in reality, probably not happening. And let me be crystal clear before the comments go nuclear: saying someone is a cut candidate does not mean I personally want them gone. It means the contract, the cap numbers, and the direction of the team make it a possibility. Alright, let's start with the name that's going to be at the center of the Bears' rumor storm until the second it becomes official: Tremaine Edmunds. And let me ask you this right out of the gate: how many more, almost, seasons are we going to accept before we call it what it is? Tremaine Edmunds just finished year 3 of a 4-year deal, and early in the season, I'll give him credit, he looked like he was finally settling in. He was playing fast, he was active, it felt like maybe we were about to get the version of him the Bears paid for. Then the injury happened, and when he came back, he just didn't look like the same guy. That's the part that hurts the most, because this isn't about effort. The problem is simple: he hasn't lived up to the contract. This is a 4-year, $72 million deal, and when you look at the numbers, it gets even more serious. His cap hit is over $17 million, and if the Bears cut him, they can save around $15 million. That's real money. That's the kind of money that can reshape your offseason. And honestly, from a business perspective, that's an easy decision. Now, there's one scenario where it gets interesting: a pay cut. If the Bears sit him down and say, "Look, we can save $15 million by cutting you. If you want to stay in Chicago, would you take a significant pay cut?" Then maybe you have a conversation. But would Tremaine actually do that? I don't know. He seems to like Chicago. He seems to like being here. But realistically, if he hits free agency, there's a strong chance some team is going to offer him a solid deal anyway, because even with the disappointment, he's still a good player. But the Bears' bigger issue isn't just money, it's speed. The Bears need to get faster on defense, and right now, T.J. Edwards is locked in financially after his extension, meaning the Bears can't really move off his money until at least 2027. He's also entering the offseason dealing with an injury, and while he's a reliable linebacker, he's not exactly a burner, athletically. And Tremaine Edmunds? Over the last couple of years, it's looked like he's lost a step too. So if you're Chicago, are you really going to run it back with both Edwards and Edmunds starting again next year when you're trying to transform the athleticism of your defense? That's why I think this is where Dennis Allen is going to push hard. The Bears need more speed and more athleticism at linebacker, and it's tough to do that if you're paying huge money to a player who's just not matching the value. There's also the possibility of bringing back DeMarco Jackson at a cheaper price, which would help, but it still doesn't change the main point: the Bears need to rework this position group. So as much as I don't love saying it, Tremaine Edmunds feels like the most likely major cut on the roster. It's unfortunate, because early in the season you could see it. You could feel it. It looked like he might finally become the right fit. But the way the year ended, it just wasn't good enough. Alright, next up, Kmet. Now stop right there before anyone loses their mind. Kmet being mentioned here does not mean the Bears should cut him. I'm not saying that. I don't even think it's likely. But the reason his name comes up is simple: the cap savings are significant enough that you have to at least acknowledge it. If the Bears cut Kmet before June 1st, they save $8.4 million. His cap hit is over $11 million this year, so you're talking real relief. If it's a post-June 1 cut, the savings jumps to about $10 million. That's why he's in the conversation. But to me, the real outcome here isn't a cut, it's a restructure or extension. If the Bears extend him with something team-friendly, they could create up to $7.1 million in cap savings in 2026. That's the move that makes the most sense, because Cole Kmet still matters to this offense. He's made his money. He's already on that big contract. And everything we know about this team's offensive identity points toward Kmet staying involved. The Bears run a ton of 12 and 13 personnel, more than almost anyone in the league, and Ben Johnson values tight ends. That matters. Now yes, Colston Loveland is the top tight end moving forward. That part is clear. But Kmet still plays a meaningful role, and while an $11+ million cap hit might be a little high for where he is moving forward, that doesn't mean you cut him. You work it out. And I believe both sides want that. Kmet wants to be here, the Bears want to keep him, and the easiest solution is a restructure or extension that helps the team and keeps a reliable piece in the offense. So could they cut him? Technically, yes. Will they? I doubt it. I think Kmet stays. Now let's talk about a player who came into the season feeling like a future cut, and then flipped the whole conversation upside down. DeAndre Swift. Before this year, it felt obvious, Swift was one of those guys where you'd say, yeah, he's probably gone after the season. But then he went out and had the best year of his career. We're talking over 1,000 rushing yards, around 300 receiving yards, and nearly 1,400 all-purpose yards. That's production. That's impact. And he did it efficiently too, averaging just under 5 yards per carry. Swift was dynamic. In space, he's dangerous. Give him one crease and he can explode. Now the Bears could cut him and save $7. $5 million, while only taking on about $1. $3 million as dead money. That's one of those cuts that makes the accountants smile. But football isn't played on spreadsheets. Because here's the reality, Swift's cap hit is around $8 million, and for a guy who gave you 300+ yards from scrimmage, that's not crazy. He's not an elite running back, but he's a good one, and he fits. The bigger question is, if you cut Swift, what are you replacing him with? Are you finding another back at that price who can produce the same way? Probably not. Are you using an early draft pick on a running back when you have defensive needs? That sounds like a luxury the Bears can't afford. So unless the Bears are planning something major, I think keeping Swift makes sense for one more season. Pair him with Kyle Manengai as the 1-2 punch again, and let the offense keep rolling. Then after next year, when Swift hits free agency, you can make the decision then. But right now, don't create a problem you don't need to create. And I'm going to throw this question out early because I already know this fanbase is divided. Do you keep DeAndre Swift for 2026, or do you cash out on the cap savings and start over at running back? Me personally, I keep him. No hesitation. Now we get into the next tier of cuts. These aren't the massive savings, tight moves, but they're the kind of roster decisions teams make when they're turning the page into a new era. Let's talk about Roschon Johnson. This one stings a little, because I like the pick. He was a physical runner out of Texas, and at the time it felt like a steal. The Bears were high on him, and fans were excited about what he could become. But it just hasn't worked out. If the Bears cut him, they only save about $1 million, so it's not about clearing huge cap space. It's about roster spots, reliability, and direction. Roschon's biggest problem has been health. He's had concussion issues, and when you're a physical, between the tackles back, that's a dangerous combination. That style invites collisions, and if you can't stay available, you can't be trusted in a meaningful role. And with Swift likely staying, and Manengai already there, the Bears don't really need Roschon as a key piece. If he's back, it's probably only as a special teams player, but even then, you've got other options. You've got Travis Homer, who's likely back because of special teams value. The Bears also signed Britton Brown to a futures deal. And if you really want a third running back, you can grab one late in the draft or sign a cheap veteran. So this feels like one of those "thanks for everything, but we're moving on" situations. Now what about Kiran Amegadjie? This one is complicated, because technically, he's only been on the team for 2 years, and he was a third-round pick back in 2024. But the reality is, the Bears drafted him knowing he was injured. His rehab took longer than expected. When he finally got on the field as a rookie, it was rough. Like, this is not working. Rough. Then this year, he had a chance. There was competition at left tackle, and he just faded out of it. And then what happened? Injured again. Missed most of the season. So now you're sitting there asking two brutal questions: can he stay healthy? And even if he does, is he actually good? The Bears took a swing on a traits-based prospect out of Yale, and it just hasn't paid off. The only reason he even has a tiny chance to stick is because Ozzy Trapilo isn't expected to be ready to start next season. So maybe there's a world where Amegadjie has a chance to compete for the left tackle spot. But he's going to have to earn it. And I'm not talking about handed the job. Earn it. I mean fight for a roster spot, earn it. Right now, if I'm betting he's not on the 53-man roster next year. Now let's hit the technically possible, but extremely unlikely category. You can look at the contracts and find post-June 1 cut scenarios for guys like Montez Sweat, Jaylon Johnson, and others. But I don't think those cuts are real. Montez Sweat had a solid year, and honestly, the Bears' defensive line isn't strong enough to just dump one of your best players for cap space. That would be backwards team building. Could something crazy happen, like if the Bears somehow land a superstar pass rusher and need to trim money? Sure, maybe in some alternate universe. But as things stand today, Montez Sweat should be part of the plan. Jaylon Johnson had a frustrating season, and yes, a post-June 1 move could save decent money, but cornerback is too important. And with Kyler Gordon likely gone in free agency, Nate Wright likely walking in free agency according to this script, you're not exactly in a position to start deleting corners off the roster. If Jaylon is healthy, the talent is still there. And as for Tariq Stevenson, I expect him back as well, because you're going to need bodies in that secondary and you're probably not re-signing Nate Wright. So those big, long shot cuts. I'm not buying it. Which brings us right back to the headline, Tremaine Edmunds. If the Bears are going to make one major cut that sends a message and clears real cap room, it's him. Because saving roughly $15 million while moving on from a contract that hasn't delivered is the cleanest path. Linebacker is also a position where you can find cheaper replacements and still get solid play, especially if you're emphasizing speed and athleticism. And with this new defensive approach, it feels like the Bears want a different type of linebacker leading the group. Now here's the question of the day. And I want you to be loud in the comments. If you could cut one player from this roster right now to improve the Bears' offseason, who would it be, and why? Because I know most people are going to say Tremaine Edmunds, but I want to see who else you think should be on the chopping block. And look, this is the reality of the NFL. Every offseason, teams have to make brutal decisions. Players you like, players you believed in, players who had moments. Sometimes the math just doesn't work. The Bears don't have the cap space to sit still. They're going to restructure deals. They're going to move money around. And yes, some names are going to be gone. So buckle up, because the Bears are about to reshape this roster fast. Drop your cut candidate in the comments, and if you want the next video breaking down exactly how the Bears can open up a ton more cap space, you already know what to do. Bear down.